Alright, what's up everybody? This is Roman Gennaro of the Real Cinema Squad, and on behalf of Austin and Ty, I want to wish you a happy 4th of July, even though by the time you see this, it'll be the 5th of July. But go have a hot dog, watch some fireworks, watch Independence Day, which is what I'll be doing after I finish recording this video, and enjoy the 4th of July. With that being said, I want to talk to you today about episodes 5 and 6 of the second season of Criminal Minds Evolution. And these have been the two best episodes of the season so far, in my opinion, especially episode 5, so let's jump right in. At the end of episode 4, we saw Elias Voit being brought into the BAU because the BAU needed him to get in touch with Damien, who is the person that they believe to be in charge of Gold Star. So they agree to bring him into the BAU. And when he gets there, the entire team is there watching over him very carefully, very intensely, except for David Rossi. You remember from an earlier review from last season that Elias Voit put Rossi in a cargo container underground, and Alves and the team got to him in the nick of time. So there has been an intense bond between Voit and Rossi. Rossi has been seeing him throughout the season, talking to him even when he's not there, which is something we learned that Rossi has done a lot over the years, although we haven't seen it until now. I do think it's a little bit of a weird development that Rossi is struggling this much with Voit, because even though, yes, he put Rossi underground, we've seen Agent David Rossi ever since he joined the team in 2008 in the third season of the original series. Even though you find out later in the series that he actually started the division with Jason Gideon, played by Mandy Patinkin in the first two seasons, well before the show started, so he was rejoining in 2008. But we've seen him and the team deal with a lot tougher people, a lot more intense people, and a lot worse things happen to them, and Rossi hasn't struggled with it this much. But it makes for good TV, and so when Voit gets to the BAU, he notices everyone's there except Rossi, and he calls out. He says, "Dave, are you here?" And he's yelling throughout the office. He says, "Are you here? I just want to talk." Then it goes up to Rossi's office to find him sitting in the office waiting until Voit is gone. He's sort of hiding out. Back to why he's there. He's able to get in touch with Damien over an audio call on a laptop, and they have a conversation for a bit, and Damien is there with Jade, who is another member of Gold Star. We've only met 3 of them so far, but only 2 of them remain alive, so there are 2 others out there somewhere. I don't know if we'll see them in the last 2 episodes or not, because Damien says in the 5th episode that they are missing, so we don't know where they are. Voit is trying to convince Damien to meet him in person. Damien is skeptical, and at some point during the call, Voit taps on the table, which seems to be nothing at the time, but when Damien hangs up the call without confirming a meeting or a location, Agent Luke Alves realizes that the tapping on the table was actually Morse code, and Voit was sending a signal to Damien, and when Alves looked up what that Morse code was, it turns out that he was telling Damien North Star. And they say, "What is North Star?" And Voit says, "It's nothing. I had to give him something. This is how he operates. It's not a thing. I made it up." The meeting place was in Davenport, Iowa, and originally they weren't going to let Voit go because it's a risk taking a fugitive out into the field. But Voit says, "He knows my voice, anyone else's voice, and he's gonna bolt, and you won't get him." So they agree to take Voit on the jet with them to Davenport, Iowa. Just before this happens, however, Emily Prentice meets with Brian Garrity, who, after giving her information that he was getting in good with Gold Star and all this sort of stuff, she meets him in an interrogation room, and he stonewalls her. He repeats Garrity, Brian J., lawyer, over and over. He won't tell Prentice anything. And after his hold is up, she lets him go, and she looks at him and she says, "Listen, I'm not talking to you as an FBI agent. I'm talking to you as a friend. You have to tell me something." And so inevitably he leans in and he tells her, "They gave me a 4-word phrase, a get out of federal custody free card phrase. And Prentice says, what is the phrase? And he leans in and he says, Teresa is in trouble. And Prentice says, who is Teresa? And he says, I don't know. That's just what they told me to say. Then it cuts to Tyler Green, who has been working with the BAU for each of the last 2 seasons after being heavily involved in the hunt for Sicarius, because he was a former military veteran who believed Sicarius had something to do with his sister's death. Immediately cuts to him, and he's on the phone with somebody. Says, call me back. You might be in trouble. Back to Voit. Just before they're getting ready to leave for Davenport, Iowa, Prentice gets a notice that she has been benched because the details of her arrest have been reported on the internet, and until that can be cleared up, even though the charges were dropped, she is benched, which forces her to hand over the reins of the BAU temporarily to David Rossi, who initially doesn't want them. He says, I'm not in the best state of mind right now, and Prentice says, neither am I, you got to do it, which forces David Rossi to be on the plane with Elias Voit. And while on the plane, there was a very good scene between Rossi and Voit on the plane, which the meat of that conversation was Rossi telling Voit that he doesn't think about him, which we, the audience, know to be a lie because we've seen him constantly bothered by Voit in his head. And so they get to Davenport, Iowa, and they have a whole sting set up. They're in a park. They have cameras set up. They have a sniper set up. And Rossi's standing by one of the snipers, and he says, if he even flinches, take him out. Then all of a sudden, a van that is completely blacked out, completely covered in Kevlar, starts speeding through the park directly toward Voit. Rossi orders the snipers to take out the tires, which they do, and the team rushes the van, opens the door, and just finds some guy who had said that he was going to sell a bunch of goods to Damien and Jade, and then when he backed out of the deal, they got the jump on him, threw him in the van, and made him drive this van with a bomb strapped to him. The bomb had a phone on it. And so while the team is scrambling to disarm the bomb, the phone rings, Voit picks it up, and it is Jade. Jade says she's gonna detonate the bomb, and Voit says, no, you're not, calling her bluff. Zach Gilford, who plays Voit, was great in season 1, but he is fantastic in season 2. Says, if you look me in the eye, I will tell you about North Star. And so the team is able to disarm the bomb and get it off the guy. And for a second, it looks like Voit is going to run, to which Rossi tells the sniper, be ready just in case. And then all of a sudden, he gives himself up. He is cuffed again and taken to an Iowa State Police van. He gets in the van, but the driver who gets in is Damien. He gets in the van, he looks in the rearview mirror, and he says, you said if we looked you in the eye, you'd tell us. So what is North Star? Then we see Voit back in his cell, and he's smiling. So you get the idea that he's either lying to Damien or he's lying to the BAU when he says he made it up. And that's basically where episode 5 ends. Episode 6 picks up with Tyler Green bringing a woman into the BAU who turns out to be Teresa, from the code word Teresa is in trouble. Turns out Teresa was an ex-girlfriend of his who believes she's being stalked. And this is something of a B-plot. Turns out that the stalking of Teresa was from Sebastian Gaspar, who was the broker of the escrow account that was supplied to the strike team that we saw at the beginning of the season. And it was all a front to frame or target Tyler Green, who we saw for the first time in something of an evolution, working with the BAU instead of going behind their backs, and kind of the ice melting with him and Luke Alves and Penelope. And I have a theory that if not a full member of the BAU, Tyler Green will end up working with the BAU in a full-time capacity in some way. Turns out that the whole Teresa thing was to frame Tyler Green, so maybe he's involved in Gold Star more than we think as well. This episode 6 pretty much revolves around Voit and Rossi, and Rossi decides that he needs to go see Voit face to face. He arrives at the prison with Voit back in the cell, and tells his friend, who's one of the guards, turn off the cameras. He walks in, and Voit says, well, you need the cameras off. And Rossi tells him, the deal you made is off the table because it didn't lead to us catching Gold Star. So the deal you made is off the table. I'm here because I need to talk to you. And they end up having a long conversation between Voit and Rossi, and they're talking about Damien, they're talking about Gold Star. It had been established earlier in these couple episodes that Damien, along with the rest of Gold Star, had been groomed to be these killers. And Rossi's not convinced that North Star isn't real, as Voit claims it's not. And Voit asks him, you said in an interview one time that in order to decompress, you play video games. Do you still do that? And Rossi says, it's been a while, but yes. And he says, what kind of games do you play? And Rossi says, first-person shooters and racing games. And Voit says, do you ever play quest games? And Rossi didn't want to hear it at first. And Voit says, where do you think conspiracy theories start? They start with games like that. It's like life is boring, so conspiracy theorists need to gamify life. The similarities between these games and conspiracy theories is that people like Damien, you wander around looking for clues, and that clue leads you to a big boss, and you defeat the big boss, and then you look for more clues and defeat another boss, and it goes on and on and on. He said, so me telling Damien about North Star was because we needed to give him something to keep him going. We needed to give him something to keep his interest, to keep his attention, give him the next boss. And then they start talking about the fact that Damien was groomed and how that started at Stewart House and what caused that. And Voit says, what is North Star to you, astrologically? Rossi says, when you're looking at the constellations, you first want to find the North Star, and then you go from there. And Voit says, or you can look at it as the place where everything starts. And this gets Rossi thinking, and he leaves the jail, and he goes back to the BAU with the whole team there, and he's got a paper in his hands. He's got a long essay, like a paper in his hand, and he throws a copy to every person on the team. And they're reading it. And he says, back in the mid-90s, Jason Gideon and I, who again was played by Mandy Patinkin in the first 2 seasons of the original run, back in the mid-90s when we first started focusing on serial killers, drummed up a hypothetical situation that would create a killer. And the team was reading it, and they were shocked and confused by what they're reading, and Rossi says the reason why we never published it is because it began to feel like something of a recipe, like how to make one. And as they were reading it, it started to sound eerily similar to the situation the team found themselves in with Damien and Gold Star. They looked at Rossi and they said, what are you trying to tell us here? And Rossi says that Gold Star started from North Star, and North Star is the BAU. We are North Star. And that's pretty much where the episode ends. So my theory is that given the fact that the only 3 people ahead of this season that knew about Gold Star appeared to be Voit, Rossi, and Douglas Bailey, the deputy director of the FBI, who Voit took out at the end of season 1, because this paper was unpublished, somebody had to get their hands on this unpublished paper. That unpublished paper was stored within the BAU, within the FBI, which means that this probably all started with a plant inside the FBI. This kind of lends more credibility to that theory, and that's where I think it's going to go. So we don't know yet who it is, but we do know that it is internal. I'm really excited to see where the rest of the season goes. It's getting better with every episode. There was one interesting moment between Emily and JJ in this episode where Emily, after being benched, was struggling with it and considering leaving the BAU. And JJ stopped her by saying, look at the people that we've lost that have left. And she mentions Gideon. She mentions Andy Patinkin's character early in the series. She mentions Shamar Moore's Derek Morgan. And she mentions Hotch, the person that she doesn't mention is the person that the fans of Criminal Minds are hoping most returns to the show. The person that she doesn't mention leaving is Dr. Spencer Reid, who was one of the team members for every episode of the original run. Every season of the original run, he missed a few episodes here and there, but he was a focal point of the show in season 1, and many fans have hoped that he would return. And they made a point in season 1 of Evolution to point out that all the Spencer stuff was still on his desk, so that they expect him to come back at some point. So they're again doubling down on the fact that Spencer Reid is not gone from the BAU. He's just absent at this time. Possibly because towards the end of the series, he would miss a few episodes here and there because he would go on a teaching assignment or whatever it is. And this all seems to be seasons 1 and 2 of Evolution seem to be taking place within a pretty short time of each other. So he could just be away. But it lends more possibility to the fact that Spencer Reid could come back at some point. And the actor that plays Spencer Reid has said that he wants to. It's just a matter of timing. So hopefully we will see Spencer Reid again. But that is my summary of episodes 5 and 6. It's getting really, really good. I can't wait to see how the final 4 episodes finish out. But until the next video, happy 4th of July. I am Roman Gennaro for the Real Cinema Squad. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the channel. Comment on this video to tell me what you think of Criminal Minds Season 2 so far, and or what you want to hear more of on the channel. Until the next video, I'm Roman for the Real Cinema Squad. See you then.